Hi everyone, it's Lindy on from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a super fun, brand new Simon Says stamp exclusive to show you. Now this particular set is done in conjunction with Art Impressions, and you can see it's part of STAMPtember collection. So this is an exclusive set, so it will be available for a limited time, and you can see how cute this is. You get this little lady, and we're going to go ahead and stamp her. You also get several coordinating sentiments with this set. So first, let me get you started with the coloring, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the stamp set. I'm starting off with Evergreen and Apple Green, and I'm using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens to do my coloring. So these are a water-based pen, and I'm using my Zig blender pen to do the blending. Now you could certainly use a water brush here. I also want to mention that I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock to do my coloring. And if you follow my videos, you know that that's my favorite paper to do my coloring on. It just kind of keeps that ink floating up on top of the cardstock a little bit better and gives me more time to do my blending. So, and it's very forgiving. I can go over and over it and nothing happens to the paper. So I find it the perfect cardstock for my coloring. And I'm going to switch over to the blue-gray to do her pants. And off camera, I have the packaging for this set, just so that I can be sure that I'm coloring in the correct areas. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell what you're coloring in. And also, Art Impressions and Simon Says Stamp, they do a great job with the indexing on their packaging. So you can really take a look at the packaging and see exactly what you want to do. You can follow along with the colors that they used, which would make it really quick and simple to do. But here we're going to be creating a really fun background. I've got a Sunray background and then a tree, a maple tree next to it. So I wanted the colors on her outfit to not compete with that. And I really want that little basket of apples to stand out. So I'm going to keep her shirt white, and I've grabbed the light gray, and all I'm doing here is just adding a few little shadows around the edges and pulling that color out, kind of keeping the top part of the shirt the lightest. Now I've got the light brown, and I'm going to use that for her hair. The light brown in the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens has a little bit of a reddish tint to it, I feel. So I thought it would be perfect to do her hair in that color. I'm going to keep some of the darker shadows close to her face and then pull everything up towards the top. And next I'll grab the beige and the mid brown, and we'll do her shoes in those two colors, and we'll do the basket in those two colors as well. Now again, this is an exclusive set. So it's done in conjunction with Art Impressions and Simon Says Stamps. And what it is it's going to be a limited time. So once it's sold out, there will be no more. So if you really love this set, you can go ahead and make that purchase. You may want to do that quickly so that you can be sure to get your hands on this set. And I have all the links for the products, all the products I'm using today down below and also on my blog. So you can see here that beige and mid brown is one of my favorite combinations to do some blending. You get a really nice shadowing with that mid brown. Now here I'm just going to use the beige to do the little stems on these apples. For her skin and for her face, I'm using the Sugared Almond Pink on her cheeks. I'll put a little bit underneath her chin there as well. And then I'll use that flesh color to add the skin tone. Now I did have a little bit of extra ink there where that basket handle goes over her arm. I got a little bit of that beige there. So a really quick and easy way to fix that is if you grab that ink with your blender pen and you pull it off the image and then scribble it onto your scrap paper. And just keep doing that to remove that excess ink, and it's really easy to do. And since I am using the flesh color, I found that it blended out pretty easily, so I wasn't too worried about that. I've got the deep vermilion for my apples. I'll keep the darker color towards the bottom of the apples and just kind of blend up. And that apple that she's holding in her hand, there is a candle in this set, and what you can do is put that candle right into the apple. You can see there's a little opening at the top of the apple, so you can pop it right in there and make this a birthday card as well. I just think this is such a cute, fun fall card that I decided to turn this into an apple festival card. And although I hate to see summer end because I love the summer, I am looking forward to the festivals and the fairs and all those fun fall activities. And this stamp set certainly gets you in the mood for fall. So now I've got that light gray again, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the sides just to age that little banner across the basket a little bit. And then I'll use the same green, the light green and the dark green to do her earrings. So again, I just sped that up just so I could show you what I did. I know a lot of you like to see the coloring. So I'm grabbing my detail scissors. I'll go ahead and cut her out. And I'm not going to leave a white border around the edges. I'm just going to cut right up to that stamped line. I've got my white Jelly Roll gel pen, and I'm adding some highlights here and there. This will just make everything pop out a little bit more. So let me give you a closer look at our little lady all colored in. Now for paper, I've got this brand new Gnome paper pack from Art Impressions. It's a double-sided paper, and you can see all these adorable little patterns that you get. And we're also using the Leafy tree backdrop die from Lawn Fawn. I'm going to grab this wood grain pattern, and I'm going to use that for the tree. So what I'll do, I don't want to waste my paper. I'm pretty frugal when it comes to my pattern paper. So I just need the tree and the wood grain, so I'm sliding that die over so that I'm only cutting out that tree. I've got my Tim Holtz titanium shears so that I can cut a nice straight line across, and I want to cut away that frame. Now off camera, I cut several of the frame itself out of some Kraft heavyweight cardstock. And I'm going to add this wood grain pattern right over that tree. Now you'll see that I cut, I believe, 3 or 4 layers of the frame, and we'll go ahead and glue these down. We'll glue these together, and that will give us a nice thick frame. So that'll start to set the scene really well for us, giving us a little dimension. So I've gone ahead and glued those all together, and I want to add a little ink. So I'm going to grab my archival ink pads. These are from the Tim Holtz Distress line. I've got Vintage Photo and Ground Espresso. I'm starting off with the lighter color, and then what we'll do is come in with a little bit more of the darker colors. Now, what I want to mention, the reason I'm using an archival ink along with my sponge dauber is because that wood grain cardstock has a little bit of a sheen to it. And if I were to try to use my dye inks or my Distress Oxide inks, it just won't dry on that paper. So that's why I've switched over to my archivals. And again, that will dry permanently. And now I'm just adding some of those same 2 colors around the edges of my frame and just kind of blending that out a little bit. It will just kind of soften those edges a little bit. So we'll be using a combination of Tim Holtz inks today. There we were using the archival, which are a permanent ink, and they will dry on a slicker surface like we're using with this pattern paper. And then we'll also be using the mini ink pads, which are a water-based ink. So now I've got Rustic Wilderness and Peeled Paint. These are the Distress Oxide inks. And I've grabbed the Distress Oxide inks because these blend really well on the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. And this little section that I'm making up was part of the Leafy Tree Backdrop die set, and this will create the tree, the greenery on the tree for us. I've taken a little bit of that Rustic Wilderness and I've put it on my glass media mat I've spritzed that with a little bit of water, and now I'm going to go ahead and spatter that. And that's going to give us a little bit of texture. Now I've got Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn. Again, these are the Distress Oxide inks. I'll start with that lighter Twisted Citron, and then we'll add a little bit of the Mowed Lawn from the bottom up towards the top. I'm going to keep the top of these little hillside borders the lightest. I'm just using a piece of scrap paper there so I don't get fingerprints on this. So it'll just kind of hold it in place while I add that darker color. Let's go ahead and set those aside for now and let those dry. Now I've got a piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I've got this Lawn Fawn stencil. This is the Sunray background stencil. And we're going to create some sun rays coming up from behind that tree. I just used a little bit of my Tombow tape runner to just hold that paper in place. And I've placed it on my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. Here I'm just showing that you could have these rays coming from the side, the bottom, the top, whatever you want. But I thought it would be pretty to have them kind of coming out from behind the tree, as though the sun is behind that tree. So I want to make sure it goes all the way to the end. So I'm just positioning this so that I know that little corner will get covered, and I know that bottom left-hand corner will get covered by the frame. So that is positioned just the way I want it. I can go ahead and place the magnets down. So this Make Art Station is just going to hold this stencil in place for me. Again, I'm using the Distress Oxide inks, and I've got the Crackling Campfire. So I'm going to start with that darker color. I'm kind of tapping it onto the cardstock up in the corner there, and then starting to pull it down onto the stencil. Next, I'll take the Spiced Marmalade, and I'm going to overlap these two colors just a bit and then blend those out. You do want to do a nice job blending so you don't have a break between the colors. And now I've got this Scattered Straw, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm trying to be careful with this stencil because it is these narrow little strips, so I'm kind of trying to go a bit in one direction. Once I have that done, let me remove that stencil, and you can see how pretty this is. But I'm going to take that Scattered Straw blending brush. I'm just going to take off any of the excess ink onto a paper towel and then blend this. Now, while this ink is wet, I can do some nice blending and take away some of that bright white on the background. I've got my Wink of Stella glitter pen. I've just squeezed a little bit out onto my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station, added a little bit of water and a small brush. I'm going to spatter that background, and look how pretty that is with that sparkle. So let's create a little rake for our scene and some leaves. This particular die set has some really cute sentiments. This set is from Art Impressions as well. And this is called the Harvest Journal die set. I've got some Distress Kraft Heavystock, and then I've got some Metallic Classics Kraft-stock. These are both from the Tim Holtz collection. Now I went ahead and die cut the rake using some Kraft cardstock and the silver metallic cardstock. I'm going back to that archival ink that we used earlier, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color around the edges. And I just cut the end of the rake in the silver, and then I'm gluing those two together, and look how cute that is. I just love this. And I'm just going to bend the edges a little bit to give it some dimension. And that's easy to do with the metallic cardstock. It's kind of pliable. I've just got my white craft mat here so you can see what colors I'm placing down. And I'm just grabbing a variety of colors. Now I've switched over to my regular dye inks. These are again part of the Tim Holtz Distress line, and these are a water-based ink. So I'm switching things out just because I think the different inks are great for different parts of your project. And I've grabbed a couple of greens. I'm going to leave some of that yellow and orange down and pick up a little bit of that as well. So what I'm doing here is just creating some little backgrounds so we can die cut our leaves from these backgrounds. And this is really fun to do. I love doing this. It's just sort of an ink smushing technique. So you really just place the ink down, spritz it with a little bit of water, and then place your cardstock on top. And again, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I'm leaving all those ink colors down there because I'm picking up a variety of inks. I will list and link all of those little mini ink pads that I'm using down below for you. Now, so you can see I'm just kind of blotting it up, and then I can use my finger to move that ink around a little bit if I want to. And look how pretty that is. So I want a variety of leaves. Now I did die cut a whole different collection of the leaves from that die set. But in the end, I just used the maple leaves. But I'll use those other leaves on another project, so I'm not worried about it. But I got everything die cut, and you can see all my leaves here. Now I've got my Sizzix sculpting kit, and it has these little tools that you can use. So you could just rub these and create a little dimension. And you can take that smaller ball tip and just add some little veins in the center. And you can see that up close. So let me do another couple of these here. So here's the maple leaf that we're going to be using. And I'm just, again, adding some little veins. So it just gives some interest. And while you're adding those veins, it makes that leaf pop up a little bit and gives it some dimension. But you can also come in with that sculpting tool, that larger ball tip, and just press that out. So these are fun to do. Just sit and make a whole bunch of these, and then you have them for future projects. So I've got everything here, and now I'm going back to that dye ink, the Distress dye ink, and this is the ground espresso. And I'm just going to use my little sponge dauber and add a little color to the edges. I'm trying to take that white edge away. And you can see those up close. So now I want this banner die. And this is from the Art Impressions Rides collection. And this one is called Floral Truck Set. And again, I'm going to stamp 2 of the banners, and then I'm going to use that die to die cut these out. I'm going to color in the banners. I'm going back to that deep vermilion. We'll do every third one. I'm adding the color towards the top and then pulling it down towards the bottom of those little triangles. Next, I'll grab the yellow, and the last color I'll use will be the light gray. So I'm going to keep them almost white, that third little flag just almost white. Now we're going to do some lettering on these. I want to add the words Apple Festival. So I've got my 0.1 millimeter Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen. This is a permanent black pen, and I'm just going to add the word apple, and I'm just going to write it in. You could certainly use your stamps here if you prefer that. And I'll add the word festival to this other banner. Once that's done, we can go ahead and die cut these. Now I've got the stamp set again, and I'm going to use this cute little sentiment that says, always look on the bright side of life. I love that. It's so cute. But there are several coordinating sentiments with this set. Let's go ahead and start our assembly. Again, I'm going back to the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. We'll glue down the greenery for our tree, and I'm just sliding it into the card a little bit because I know my frame is going to cover some of that. And then we'll glue down that largest grassy border. I just keep checking to make sure it's in the right position. And now we'll go ahead and glue down this smaller grassy border. And that's going to be glued to the front of the frame. So that's going to give us a little bit of dimension between those two borders. Now I've got my little lady. So I'm going to go ahead and add some glue, and then we'll glue her in place. I'm placing her down towards the bottom. I know that her feet will get covered a little bit, but I didn't want her up too high. So let's glue down this tree and frame. Next, we'll add those little banners up towards the top. And for this lower one, it's got a little space between the tree and the frame itself, so I'm going to add just a couple little pieces of some foam squares just to make sure that it stays up nicely. We can remove the backing from those squares and then add a little bit of glue to either end and glue this down. Off camera, I did die cut some more of the maple leaves, and I'm going to set all those other ones aside. So let's go ahead and start gluing these in place. And I'll kind of position that rake right where I want it to be. And I'm going to tuck a few of these leaves in behind the rake and in between those grassy borders. And then for the rake, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the handle and then a little tiny bit of a foam square underneath that silver portion of the rake. I'm just going to cut a little tiny chunk. That'll just hold it up nicely. So I kept kind of moving those leaves around and positioning things where I wanted them. And then I thought I'd have a nice little cluster of leaves in front of the rake as well. And I'm going to pop one of those up, again going back to those foam squares. I want a few of them to look like they're kind of falling from that tree. So I'm just going to add a few kind of dropping down. So this is fun, just play around with these and come up with some just fun ways. And I love the variety of colors on the leaves. I just think it's so fall looking. It's so much fun. And some of the other sentiments on this set, one says, hope your day is absolutely wonderful. The other one says, happy birthday to one fine apple. And another one says, you might be a year older, but on the bright cider, you're still a goddess. So these are just so cute. And again, there is that little glass of cider with a couple little apples around it, which would make a really cute little place setting if you wanted something for Thanksgiving or for a little fall party. That would be really cute on a little place setting. So let's put that last leaf over in the corner here on the right hand side. And now we can create that card base. And again, that's some Kraft heavyweight cardstock. That measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches. I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 inches, and we'll go ahead and glue that frame right over top. So I'm going to add plenty of glue, and that will allow me to slide this around a little bit if I need to make sure I get it positioned just right. I'm going back to the Wink of Stella glitter pen, adding a little bit of glitter to her lips, her buttons, and a little bit on this little banner on the basket, just for a little bit more sparkle. And let's take a closer look at the finished card. So again, keep in mind this is a limited edition, so once it's sold out, it will not be available again. So again, I have all the links for all the products I've used today listed down below and also on my blog. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.